Okay, welcome everyone to the Doylestown Township Pension Advisory Committee, Monday, February 8th, 2018. First of all, I think we all express condolences to Stephanie and her family. Very sorry to hear about your sister.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad you guys made it back safe. Did she have a family?
Yes, I have an older niece and nephew.
Okay, so they're doing all right?
Surviving.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have another sister as well. But thank you
Okay.
very much.
Yeah.
My family and I appreciate the condolences.
Not a problem. Okay, so moving on to the prior meeting minutes. Any comments, edits? I had one, Stephanie, on page 2. The paragraph, I don't know, it's about the 6th or 7th paragraph that says, it's the last sentence that said, this information is very important to PAC. I would just change that to very important for the township in understanding the portfolio's performance over time.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? All right, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move.
All right, so, okay, Colleen and Bob, all in favor? Raise your hand.
Aye.
All right. Okay, moving on to old business. So I think we're at the 1 yard line. Tom is, we got some feedback from the solicitor. I think it was all reasonable feedback. So Tom, why don't you just quickly walk us through the changes?
Sure. I sent the committee what I'm calling the corrected version of the IPS, if you will, the corrected final version, I hope. And what that encompasses are the comments from the solicitor. I'll refer to them as B, C, and M, which Stephanie forwarded along that letter dated January 25th. Most all of the items were syntax type of issues. One of the big requests is instead of using the phrase investor, we actually used Doylestown Township. So that was relatively easy, just combing through the document. And again, all of the items, item 7, for those of you that may have the copy of the letter, there were 2 comments on the portfolio that I slightly altered the wording in the section to make the clarification. And point A was basically what is meant by directly accountable. That is the advisor is directly accountable for all the sub-allocations that the strategies employed. And so I changed that to basically encompass the directly accountable means it's the contribution to the performance. So I think that made it a little clearer. I sense maybe the directly accountable was a little vague, but feathering in contribution to performance is obviously how we should be evaluating the advisor. The second point, the B point of that was a reference to selecting. It was a reference to the section within selecting external managers, the advisor selecting external managers, and some of the terms and conditions. All of that was taken from the original IPS, and the phrase objective third party drew the solicitor's attention, and wanted to know who the third party is and what are the qualifications for an objective third party. I struck the entire reference to objective third party because basically what that was referring to is all external managers should be reporting in a typical compliant manner. And Colleen, you're nodding your head, you understand that. So it's implicit. I don't think we have to ask for an objective third party. All external managers should be, I'll throw out a phrase that nobody else will know, but probably Colleen, they're all GIPS compliant. So I didn't see the need to labor on the objective third party, so I just removed it from that reference. Everything else was made, and as you see, that's the final document. I had to go to a separate last page for the formal authorization section, which has basically the date will be filled in and will be signed by all members of the Board of Supervisors. So that's it.
All right, so Tom, you sent that out. Stephanie, you have that, right? So what's next? Any comments, questions, concerns? Okay, Tom, you got my email, right?
From?
No, I sent you an email. You asked me to take a look at it.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and you
Yes.
factor, I guess you tweaked
I did.
this. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. That was Friday. Yes.
Yep. Okay, so with that, all right. So Stephanie, what's our next step here?
Well, I was waiting to see if you had any other,
Okay.
changes, moves, adds, changes to the document, and if today, and if not, then I will forward it to the solicitor.
All right, so maybe we should take a formal vote, just to make it official, I guess. So everyone in favor of approving the IPS and submit it into the Board of Supervisors, raise your hand. Okay, all in favor? All right, so we're ready to move forward on that.
The final version of this, certainly when signed, should go to the advisor as a copy. But we're probably a step or two away from that.
Well, that's a good point. So Stephanie, what's our next step?
Well, I would send this to the solicitor. He'll put in a final version for the board. So, assuming he's okay with it on the next agenda, which would be next week, we would take his letter and the revised IPS, and he'll review it with the board, and then the board would adopt it and sign it.
Okay, and then you'll forward it to
Then it
Brady, I
would
guess?
then it would be sent out to Brady and probably our other consultant, just so everybody has record of it.
Great. And you'll and the back will get a copy of that
Mm-hmm.
the communication, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. All right. Check.
That wasn't too painful, was it?
That's good. That's good. Again, Tom, you did an extraordinary job, so we really appreciate it.
No,
Yeah,
it's a
thanks,
good,
Tom.
it's
We're
a good,
Very
I-
grateful.
I think it's a good document, and from others I've seen, again, it's our document, and I think it's very durable. It will actually play a role in the RFP, because it should be an attachment, an addendum, because this really spells out everything we're doing and what we want. So the timing going into this next exercise in terms of the RFP, it's very fortunate. So
Good.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Tom, and everybody else that had something to do with it. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, so moving on to the other item, old business is I drafted objectives and the what do you call the annual? Let me pull it up. I can't remember what it's called. Oops. Oh, Stephanie, can I share my desktop?
Sure, just a moment.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is the annual report to the. Can everyone see it?
yes,
All right, so this is this was discussed last time. This is the annual report to the Board of Supervisors. We reviewed I kind of lost track of, it's been sent out to everyone. Everyone's got an updated version, I think. I sent it to Stephanie. So, and I know, Stephanie, we were talking about recording something on this, but to be honest with you, I was feeling a little guilty about occupying even more of the Board of Supervisors' time, and it's pretty straightforward.
Well, the Telecommunication Advisory Board is bringing the chairs of the different committees in to the meeting room and recording them.
Okay,
So you would be able to come in and, you know, be recorded. They would be in the tab room. You wouldn't have to interact with anyone. You could just go right in and they'll tell you where to set up, you know, remain socially distant, and then they would record you with your PowerPoint and everything.
all right, so basically.
And then we're
I can
going to
show up-
string them together into one with all the boards and committees. Several of the chairs have already come in.
Okay, all right, so,
So I think Aaron Walzer has tried to reach out to you. I think if you want, he can reach out again and set a
yeah, if
time.
you would, I might have missed it.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so, yeah, so I can handle that. I think after tomorrow, or Wednesday, I think my calendar opens up. So we can handle that. So I sent this a copy to everyone here. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so pretty straightforward. We have the committee. We have our 2020 objectives. But just to keep it simple, I just put check marks and red notes in there. And then this is our 2022 objectives, which I tweaked a little more. Is everyone comfortable with this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so all right, so we're good with that. Stop sharing.
And Ed, you did a good job. You presented to the board the last meeting, correct? I just wanted to acknowledge.
So say again?
You presented to the board the last meeting, correct?
Yeah, the IPS.
So good job on that. I just
Oh,
wanted
thank
to
you.
make sure I thought I emailed you, but I don't think I
Oh,
did.
thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, yeah, it was good.
So yeah, so I'm glad it went well. It seems like it went well, and it seems
Yeah.
like it was well received.
Yeah. I think it
Jen
was.
and Nancy, thoughts?
Yeah.
Did a
Okay.
great job, Ed.
All right, thank you.
It's really helpful, Ed, and it's also good for all the other committee members to understand that's part of the goal, or I guess the silver lining of all of the way we're doing things because of COVID is that everybody can really hear everybody else's presentation and learn. And who knows, maybe there'll be people who want to even be on a committee now because they understand something, and even for staff, because it's their pensions, it helps them understand all the conversation, what it is, and maybe not so scary.
Got it. Good. Yeah, that's good feedback. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so moving on to new business is first item in new business is the financial statements that we get from Kennedy. Ken Wallace, we
Yes,
haven't gotten those yet. And do you remember when we usually get those?
No, we haven't gotten them yet, and I've reached out to him and asked him when will we be getting the 2020 financial statements, and he hasn't responded yet. So as soon as I know, I'll let the committee.
Great.
when
So
we'll-
you can let us know, and then you can forward us a copy of them, right?
I sure will.
And my recollection, it was sometime during the month of February, right? Usually.
Late February, early March.
Okay.
Like I said, as soon as I get them, I'll forward them out to the.
Okay, all right, great. All right, so what will happen is, so we'll get a copy of that. And then what I'll do is I'm a glutton for punishment. I'll take the data and I'll enter it into a spreadsheet and update the graphs. So then I can send it out to everyone. And then we can cherry pick some of those graphs for our executive summary. So that's one piece. All right, so then, so that's it at Kennedy. So our portfolio review with Breedy is sometime soon. She should be giving us our report, right, Ken?
That's correct, yes.
All right, and then I think, Stephanie, I think we're going to have our pre-meeting with Deb. I guess ideally the date of our next meeting. Do you think that would work out?
Yeah, they had sent down some forms for my signature today because they're working on it. And you know how you guys have that hypothetical information?
Mhm.
And with, now she's with that other group with using Fidelity, they have some new requirements. So they had to sign something that acknowledged that, yes, there's hypothetical information being used at our request, So,
Okay. So in ter- in ter-
so
in
it's
ter-
in, sounds like it's in the works, she's
all right,
getting
so yeah,
ready
so
for
we'll,
that.
we'll get that report at some point. And then I
Yeah.
think we talked about having, then she'll,
March, you're supposed to, yeah, I guess it would be, if you want, I can reach out and make sure the March meeting,
yeah,
we
if
can
she
do
could
by
attend,
Zoom. Yeah.
if she could attend our March meeting. And, ideally we've gotten her report like towards the end of the second month of the quarter. Okay, well, like 2 months after, sorry, 6 weeks, 6 to 7 weeks after the end of a quarter is when we've gotten the report. And then that gives us about 2+ weeks to review it. And then we can ideally send some questions ahead of time and then go through it. Everyone on board with that?
And I would just highlight the other piece of information I sent along to you guys Friday was it was market information, and,
Right.
and you're seeing that come from me. So I was trying to figure the best time to send that, and it wouldn't be after the day of the briefing because it's too much information. So
Right.
I had to put together, and so I sent that in ahead so we could all get a look and kind of have a feel for what simply global equity markets did for the year, which the data is self-explanatory in the table. I've tracked this every quarter since I've been with you. And so those are the quarterly returns, 1, 2, 3, 4 quarter, and then the annual 2020 return on the far right-hand column. Again, this is informational purposes. I could provide a lot more detail. I don't think it's actually necessary though. But the more important part is the lower portion, which is the reference policy benchmark, which we're leaning on, citing more and more. It's obviously a cornerstone of the IPS. So this is like the answer before the question.
Right.
So the 65-35 reference policy benchmark portfolio that we have constructed returned 13.3% for 2020.
Right.
Now the question is, what did we actually earn? And we will see that with the Greedy report.
Right.
So that's kind of the bogey, if you will. Again, we should all be familiar. This is the most simplest asset allocation benchmark that there is. It's the MSCI ACWI and the Barclays aggregate ETFs, weighting them 65-35. And so if that's all we had were invested in, the number would be 13.3% for the year.
Right. So in theory, over time, well, in theory, more often than not, an investment advisor should be able to equal or exceed that. Is that right, Tom?
You would hope, yes.
Okay.
You would hope. That's not necessarily been the case in recent periods, although, again, I want to be fair and balanced. Some of the data we've been getting has been less consistent, so we're hoping for more consistency as we go forward. But from what we've seen, that's generally been the case.
So what you have observed in the real world, you and Colleen, this question for you and Colleen, right? It should be about that rate of return, our benchmark, and ideally even a little higher. Colleen, your thoughts? Yeah.
Of course, that's why you hire an advisor.
Right.
To professionally manage and hopefully beat your benchmarks.
Yep.
Doesn't always work out and nobody's, got that crystal ball. And again, as Tom has stressed, and I think as a committee, we've agreed, we need to understand from our advisor, and any advisor should be able to talk about what's contributing to their performance and what's detracting from their performance. And, you know, it helps you determine whether or not that advisor's worth what you're paying them.
Right.
So, yeah,
Okay.
that's how it works.
Is that net of fees? Would we expect that return net of her fees and expenses, or is that the gross number?
It should be net of fees, yeah.
I mean, yeah, ideally, it's net of what you're paying them. 'Cause
Yeah.
You're paying them to,
Yeah, because otherwise we wouldn't pay them. We just
Right.
invest in ETFs and we'd
We
be
have our
done.
two
Yeah,
ETFs.
I didn't know.
yeah, I would generally look for that to be net of fees.
Okay, so just playing this out, again, we'll hopefully get that report. Once we get that, I'll send an email out to everyone asking for to review it and get back with a list of questions. We can then ideally send that list of questions to Deb ahead of time. And then at that meeting, at our next meeting, you know, we'll have her go through that. Right, you know, all like similar to what we did last August. Now, one of the things I just want to point out is that I think there've been a couple of recent meetings with Deb that she's gotten a little upset, and I think she's got the impression that we're trying to attack her, which we're not. But I think we just when we do meet with her next month, I think we have to be sensitive to that, and you know, I mean, the returns are going to be what the returns are going to be, and then certainly we're going to be rolling out an RFP, and you know, if we're not happy with how things are progressing, and we're not happy with her, and we're happier with somebody else, and then we might be moving on to somebody else. Okay, any other comments or thoughts on the that portfolio review with Deb? Okay. All right. So the executive summary. You know, I think we talked in conceptual terms about this before. This obviously would be based upon the year-end results for December 31st, 2020. My personal thoughts is that you know, it should be simple. You know, I mean, graphs and pictures and simple tables. Couple key bullet points. I personally not looking for too much additional work, and I don't feel like writing a War and Peace or anything like that. So I think if we just kind of highlight, you know, so kind of that kind of style. So I mean, in no particular order, one of the things I think we'd have in there is the graph that we've been showing for the last couple of years. It shows whether the pension has a, you know, what the deficit is. Surely there'll still be a deficit, should be less of a deficit. You know, we'll show the performance. I think we should show the performance over time, and what it was for 2020, and you know, we'll contrast that versus the discount rate, you know, our assumed discount rate. Other thoughts in terms of what else? Again, I think we keep it like the 3 or 4. I'm thinking 3 or 4 PowerPoint slides, but Bob, you have any thoughts in terms of? And certainly, what we wouldn't want to reinvent the wheel, right? We basically, I'm thinking we would take screenshots, ideally, of some of the stuff from Reedy's quarterly report, and then just stick that on a slide, make a couple comments, and that would be the end of it. But Bob, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think a slide that would show the amount of money that we're contributing and the employees are contributing each year versus payouts. So we can get a sense on, you know, are we spending more than we're taking in, or is the additional money we've been adding kind of changing that?
Right.
That makes sense to you, Ed? You know.
Yeah. So basically, we've seen a similar table. I think it's in one of the slides we asked for Brady, right?
Yes.
Basically, the money coming in and the money going out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. Anything else, Bob?
And I guess maybe just a bullet or two on some of the things, some of the accomplishments for the year. I know you did it in your slide, but
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, this is really just a portfolio performance, not necessarily what our committee's doing. Just, ideally, I mean, this would get to a point where, our role is, we won't be doing as many things as we've been doing so far.
absolutely.
So, all right, so anything else, Bob?
No.
Colleen?
I wonder if it wouldn't help the board members just to, every time we do this, include a slide that summarizes the plan benefits. So they know.
What do you mean?
Just like it's kind of like a highlights for participants, like this is how old you can be, or when you separate from service, when you start getting paid out, or,
Oh,
how much-
summary of the pension plan itself,
yeah, like the benefits, like I think what even, Joe, I think had sent an email with like a summary. I can't remember the organization he sent it from. He just sent it yesterday, maybe. But just a quick slide to say, here's what the plan does for our staff and our
Right.
participants. And that just
Yeah.
kind of reiterates, it just reinforces, what staff is getting out of it.
and what the commitment the township has, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So it's not just like numbers and dollars
Yeah,
and
yeah,
cents and
yeah.
investments.
That's a good idea.
I think,
Education's key, Colleen.
yeah, that again, it just keeps reinforcing
Yeah.
some of the basic information about the plan.
Yeah, that's good. Anything else?
No,
I mean,
I think
there'll be
that was-
time to do it.
Yeah.
We'll craft a summary, but if anything up the top of your head.
Yeah, no, not off the top of my head.
All right, so I'll kind of put placeholders together in a PowerPoint slide and we can kind of perfect it.
Yeah,
Ed, I'm wondering if we should address, we have two defined benefit plans, but maybe the other plan that a number of people the new employees are in,
mhm.
the non-police
Right,
defined contribution plan.
yeah.
Do we want to do something with that?
We certainly should at some point. That's a good question. I think maybe my gut is, at least for this time around, because is we haven't really spent a lot of time on that. I think that's a good question, but I think maybe we put a placeholder in there to talk to that. That's a good point. Okay.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Tom, thoughts?
No, I think you hit the highlights, quite honestly.
Anybody? Nancy or Jen?
No, I don't have anything else to add. It sounds good.
All right. So what we'll try to Sinclair.
Just thinking that really this committee is just involved in the actual pension plan. So I'm not sure that we should divert too much attention to the other plan with the later non-uniform folks.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe
Yeah.
Stephanie has an opinion on that too.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have
Stephanie?
to double check, but I believe the goals of this committee are strictly for the DB plan and are not to be really addressing the DC plan at this time. So the focus is really on the DB plan, which is the uniform and non-uniformed employees still in the plan, or those who have already pensioned off and are on either one of those plans,
Right.
but not the DC plan, because the DC plan is strictly, pretty straight, 5%, 5%.
Do we
Right.
just put a footnote in? Something that simple, like just putting a footnote there.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that anyone hired
after.
after 2012, you can say, you can have a footnote. All non-uniformed employees hired after 2012 are on the DC plan, currently have X number in that plan. I mean, the non-uniform DB plan, as we've all noted, is going to be shrinking over time.
Right,
as
so-
people
so-
start
so-
to pension off and everything like that.
So, but maybe, I mean, certainly we can, if we identify anything that the township should be aware of that they haven't thought of, we can make that suggestion. But I think, like Nancy was saying, in the spirit of education, it's probably a good idea just to have something in there to remind people, oh, by the way, this is what exists.
Because that does not exist for the uniformed employees.
Correct.
You know.
Right.
We'll come up with a slide that basically
Yeah.
talks to it,
Mhm.
a simple slide. So we probably, probably need your help with that. So that's something we can play around with, see what we come up with.
I guess though, to your point, Stephanie, they are mutually exclusive because there is no choice. You're in one or the other.
Right.
As a
Or-
township
yeah.
employee.
Yeah. Is that Joe?
So you have to adjust your camera. We like your hat.
right.
And your curtains.
I had issues. I just got my COVID shot.
Congratulations. Where?
Up on Swamp Road, part of Doylestown Health.
Okay.
So,
Congratulations.
They're testing, yeah.
Which one did you get?
got, Moderna.
Moderna? Okay. Great.
You shrunk.
Yeah, it did. I had read
I sure-
it
I
one of the
sure-
side effects. I guess that's one of the side effects.
You go invisible, except your hat.
There you go.
What's wrong with my hat?
That could be handy.
What's wrong with my hat?
And we
That's
like
all
your
we
No, we
hat.
can see it, but we can't see your, we can't see your face.
That's all we
Bad
can see.
haircut.
Mhm.
That's
I
all we
think
can
you
see.
enjoyed the Super Bowl too much last night. Come on.
I loved it. I loved it. Hi, Nancy.
How are you?
All right, so I
Let
think,
me tell you about Moderna. Okay,
Yep.
quickly.
yep,
I'm almost a day trader in stocks, and you know.
right,
Okay. I looked at 3 areas. 1, online gambling. 2, space exploration and vaccination. And guess what?
what?
Come on.
You hit it big on Moderna.
They're doubled.
Wow. So you're taking us all out to eat then?
I most certainly can.
There you go.
But the problem
Congratulations.
is,
Hey, it's a win for everybody.
the problem is COVID doesn't allow me to do that. So we'll have to defer.
Well, I'll
But-
tell you, I can, you can send the food over via DoorDash if you want.
No.
I'll give you my address.
Next time McDonald's or Burger King opens up
Come on,
full
Joe.
service, I'll take you all out to eat.
There you go.
Okay.
Joe, tilt your camera down. We can't see you.
I think
Yeah.
he's doing that on purpose.
There he is.
There you go.
All right, so anyway, long story short, on this executive summary is similar to like everything else, is that, we'll perfect it over time. But I think it's important I think we all agree it's important to have sort of a digestible report for the Board of Supervisors, anybody else, so they can get so they can understand, so they can understand what's going on with the pensions and at least be conversant in that. So that's certainly a goal. All right, so I'll draft something up. I'll draft something up between now and our next meeting, and cut and paste some stuff in from that 3D report, and we'll kind of take it from there. All right. I think that's everything. Right? Everything on the agenda?
Could elaborate a little bit on the RFP. I spent some time looking, examining a number of the samples that
Right.
Stephanie sent along a few months ago.
Yeah.
And I think you sent them to all of us, but it was a while ago. But I would highlight, it may have been the entirety of the RFPs, because you did send some IPS samples in there as well. But New Britain, Northampton, and Middletown had fairly recently RFPs for a consultant / advisor. And I went through them pretty extensively, similar but very different. And this will take us a while, much longer than the IPS perhaps, because you know what this is a document that will go in the public domain. And so I'm sure the solicitor will be approving of this. So actually, my question to Stephanie is, would it make sense to reach out to BCM now, ask if they have any samples of RFPs for an investment advisor / consultant? A lot of the language in the body is subject to our needs, and a lot of that's encompassed in the IPS, as I said. But it's kind of at the shoulders of this, there's a lot of legal issues that I wouldn't even attempt to be able to duplicate or fake, just to say the least, because we're putting an advertisement in the public domain. We have to set ground rules. You can't, we can't have the township vulnerable to any sort of retribution, or would you change the rules, or it didn't work this way. So maybe the solicitor has a model in terms of the language around those kinds of issues. And so what I've done, and I'll share with you as we go into this more, I'm kind of pulling together an outline from those three samples, again, New Britain, Northampton, and Middletown. And so, where we can decide what the content of the RFP is. But again, at the shoulders, there's a lot of legalese and things, we'd have to be very careful about. So we'd have to build that in at either at the beginning or at the end. So if they have something or some advice sample, it would probably be helpful to build it in at the front end.
Sure.
Yeah.
Tom,
I can check with him and get back to you and see if he has something he's used previously or prefers.
Yeah.
I may even send him those three and see which ones he would maybe even prefer that we model more so than,
Would be perfectly fine.
why you've done so much work on the ISP, why I don't want you to have to spin your wheels trying to pull things and everything. It might be easier. So I'll check with Jeff.
Yeah, Stephanie, just adding to that, didn't you send out something for Abington? Is that right? You sent one for Abington too, right?
I think I did, yeah.
Yeah,
We're
so,
in the process, so that they were on the list, they were there too, but
right.
let me check with Jeff, and I'll ask him and send him what we have and see what he recommends.
Yeah, I mean, just so, and then I know Warminster went through one a couple of years ago. So basically, we have a population of about 5. So maybe, I don't know if we would need more than that.
Probably not.
My guess is there's 1 or 2 that Jeff's going to want us to focus,
Right.
that he's going to prefer. He may know the solicitor that prepared them, et cetera, and
Right.
he may want to, have us focus on those more.
Okay, that's fine. So do we want to send those 4 as opposed to just the 3? Throwing Abington since we have it already?
I mean, I can send it to him and see what he's, what he prefers.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
No problem.
Abington's is actually on their website, and all of the RFPs that they received are on their website also. So I don't know that they've made the decision yet, but that information, that's pretty recent one. So one of the things I think we need to do to stay out of trouble, and I've always suggested this with large or potentially controversial RFPs, is to have a rubric set up in advance on how you're going to evaluate it. For example, this piece of the specification meeting this criteria is worth 25% to us. This one is 10% and this is 5%. And you check down each of the responses and pretty much come up with a numerical number to justify your decision.
Right.
So we ought to take a look at that also. Otherwise, you're open to question if you pick somebody who wasn't the potentially lowest bidder, you know, it's.
Right.
a
I
rubric
think
takes
it's a
all
good
that
point, which is,
out of-
which is one of the reasons why I would want to touch base with Warminster, because the other ones, I don't think the other ones have finished their process yet, have they?
Yeah, I haven't followed Abington. I know they were getting ready
Mm.
to make their recommendation, but with COVID, I don't know if they
Yeah,
did.
Yeah.
so,
I had asked Rich Manfredi, who's the manager in Abington. He used to be up in Plumstead. I've known him for years. I
Yeah.
did ask him to keep me in the loop as to when they make that decision. He may have gotten busy and, may have forgotten to keep me in the loop, but
yeah, but where I was going on that is that I would hope that someone did what Bob just said, had a rubric with the
I can ask.
criteria that
yeah,
they
we can
use.
ask.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so Warminster might be an easy one to include in our survey, because we know they finished the process. And Joe and I visited, went to one of their presentations, and the organization was pretty good. So they seem to have ended up in the right place. So that might be another one we can reach out to, is Warminster, to see what their screening criteria is, what their rubrics was, and
What Bob is referring to in UN parlance is called technical competency.
right.
And you're absolutely right. So once we determine the criteria, the key elements that we want to see, or the services we're requesting from an advisor, yeah, we should have a quantitative scoring mechanism.
Right.
For that.
And hopefully we can copy somebody else's good idea on that too, so we don't have to
Absolutely, yeah.
reinvent the wheel.
And the simple process, I'll go way fast forward. So we get 100 responses. I'm just using it as a round number.
Right.
So the first go around is eliminating the responses that disqualify.
Right.
And so then you shrink your pool, and then you come up with a long list. Then you come up with a short list, and out of the short list is the decision.
Right.
But that's almost the easy part of just getting to that, setting up the whole structure for it. And but it would be good to see what others have done.
Yeah, copy that. So what's the hard part, Tom? Just
Back
Putting it
in
together.
the day, back in the day, you kind of eliminated those things through and I'm dating myself, and Ed, you may know it, but a Trego analysis to
Okay, Kempner Trigo, I think.
to shrink the size.
Right.
Anyway, secondly, I know I missed the meeting. My shot, I fell asleep, quite frankly, with a nap. Did we cover a point that I sent to you, Ed, about what the next steps are, like education for BOS, a glossary of terms, etc.?
We didn't get into specifics on that, Joe. All we did was we talked about our goals, which certainly education's one of them. So I think that's a good point. But we didn't talk about it specifically.
Okay.
But I think it's something we could certainly pick up
Because
at a later meeting.
we need a logical next step.
Yep. On the education, I agree.
Yes.
And
And also on the other, if I interject, we had 14 points in our recommendation. We probably have blown through plus or minus 5.
I think we probably been more than that.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, let's say it's plus or minus 7.
Right.
Okay. There are things like Social Security offset, contributions, et cetera, that can get on the agenda as future action items.
Well, actually, that's in the that's in our objective, right? That's in the that's in one of our objectives. It's not just and those aren't just one item. That's actually a menu of items, right?
Correct.
Right. you know, that that's another thing we're going to pick up on a future meeting. But right now, I think we're focused on, one, getting the objectives done, which we did. Second is we got Brady coming in. This is the part you missed, Joe. Brady will be coming up with her report sometime in the next couple of weeks. We'll get that and prepare. We're going to meet with Brady next month and do that review. Then Kennedy's report is supposed to be coming in the next couple of weeks. And then I'll update those spreadsheets and we'll do the graphs. So that's what most of our focus has been on so far. You know, so what's in the agenda. And so then the stuff about, well, I think once we get first past this meeting with Brady next month, you know, I'm thinking like April, will be when we start really hammering out at the RFP and all the other stuff.
Apologies for the late
No worries, no worries.
arrival. I'm
No
sorry.
worries, no worries. So actually, Tom, thanks for bringing that up. That's a good thing for us to get us all thinking about it, and we can start the ball rolling on that. So yeah, so I think the key is not to reinvent the wheel. One of my favorite expressions is smart people copy good ideas and really smart people copy lots of really good ideas. So I think that's great. And then we'll kind of move forward on that. Anyway, I don't have anything else prepared on that. So Stephanie, sounds like you're gonna in terms of next steps, you're gonna touch base with the solicitor and stuff like that, so we can get that moving on the slow track, and obviously we'll really ramp that up starting in April, I guess. And anybody else feels inspired, please, similar to Tom, is let's start getting ourselves up to speed on that. Anyway, that was all the agenda items. Anything else? All right. Well, it's almost dinner time. So anyway, go ahead, Bob.
I saw move to adjourn then.
Move to adjourn. Yeah, second.
Second.
Joe second. All right. Well, thanks everyone. And next week or next month is we'll see how we did in 2020, the portfolio, rather. Great. All right. Thank you.
Very well.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you all.
Goodbye.
Night.
Take care.